My girlfriend said, "I'm going clubbing with guys. You can't stop me. We aren't married." I said, "You're right." I packed her bags and left them outside. When she came back at 3 a.m., I texted, "Now you're not dating either. Enjoy the streets." I, 28 male, have been with my girlfriend for 3 years. I work as a senior analyst for a logistics firm, a job that requires a lot of focus and, apparently, a ridiculous amount of patience. We've lived together in my condo for 18 months. I pay the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, everything. She works part-time at a boutique and spends every cent of her paycheck on designer clothes and maintenance, which I never really made an issue of until the entitlement started to rot the foundation of our relationship. The shift happened about 6 months ago. She started hanging out with a new crowd from her work, women who treated their boyfriends like human ATMs and viewed loyalty as an optional hobby. Suddenly, I was just a guy who paid for her lifestyle, but wasn't allowed to have an opinion on it. It all boiled over last Friday. I had just finished a 60-hour work week and wanted a quiet night. She walked into the living room wearing an outfit that was basically 2 strings and a hope for the best. I asked where she was going at 10:30 p.m. She told me she was hitting the clubs with some guys from the gym and a few girls from work. I told her I wasn't comfortable with her going out to clubs with a bunch of single guys while I stayed home. I told her it was about respect. She looked at me with this sneer I'll never forget and said, "Respect? I'm 26. I'm in my prime. You don't own me. I'm going clubbing with whoever I want, and you can't stop me. We aren't married, remember? You have zero claim to tell me where I can go." That "we aren't married" line was a tactical strike. She knew I'd been looking at engagement rings, using our lack of a marriage certificate as a weapon to justify acting like she was single was the moment something inside me just died. I just looked at her and said, "You're right." She was actually surprised I stopped arguing. She told me not to wait up and slammed the door. The second that door hit the frame, I moved. I didn't cry or mope. I went to the guest room, grabbed the 5 large suitcases she moved in with, and I started packing. I didn't destroy her stuff. I'm not that guy. I folded everything. Her clothes, her expensive shoes, her makeup, the perfume I bought her. I didn't want her to have a single reason to come back inside to check for damages. By 1:30 a.m., her entire life was sitting in bags on the curb outside my complex gate. I went back in, changed the smart lock codes, and revoked her access to everything from the Wi-Fi to the Netflix. At 3:12 a.m., she posted a video on her story. She was taking shots off the chest of some random guy, captioned, "Living my best life, no strings attached." I took a screenshot and sent one final text. "Now you're not dating either. Your bags are on the curb. Enjoy the streets." I blocked her immediately. The next morning, the banging on my door was so loud it shook the walls. I checked my doorbell camera. It was her mother, and one of the gym buddies from the video. I opened the second-floor window and told them to get off my property. Her mother started screaming about illegal eviction and how I'd made her daughter homeless. I reminded them she wasn't tenant, never paid rent, and had literally told me hours prior that we had no formal commitment. I shut the window and called my cousin, who happens to be a litigation attorney. By Monday, the entitlement went into overdrive. I got an email from a lawyer she found through her clubbing connections. They were demanding $10,000 for relocation expenses and immediate reentry into my home, claiming she was a tenant at will. My cousin told me that while she had a technical argument for residency, her behavior on the doorbell camera, showing up with a group of people to try and force entry, was a disaster for her case. But then I found the real kicker. I started auditing my accounts. I found $6,500 missing from my high-yield savings account, transferred in increments over 3 months to a Venmo I didn't recognize. It lined up perfectly with her girls' trips. She had stolen my login info from my desk and had been siphoning my emergency fund. I didn't call her lawyer back. I went straight to the police and filed a report for grand larceny. When her lawyer called back trying to sell for $5,000, I told him I'd already filed a felony report and had the IP logs tracing the transfers back to her phone and her workplace Wi-Fi. The lawyer went silent and hung up But she wasn't done. She went on a social media rampage, posting my work email, and claiming I was an abuser who locked her out in the night. My HR department called me on Wednesday because our company LinkedIn was being flooded with her lies. I walked into my boss's office with a police report, the doorbell footage, and the living my best life screenshots. My boss was cool about it, but he told me I needed to handle this before it became a liability for the firm. I decided it was time for a scorched earth policy. I called the owner of the boutique where she worked. I told her that a police investigation was tracing stolen funds to her shop's IP address and suggested she check her own books. Turns out, my ex was also refunding store credit to herself and pocketing cash from the till. She had stolen about $3,000 from the shop, too. She was fired instantly. But instead of laying low, she showed up at my condo one last time on Friday to do a live stream for her followers. She stood outside, cried about how I was ruining her life, and tried to put her in jail over a little bit of money. I didn't even talk to her. I called the cops and told them a felony suspect was currently trespassing. When they showed up, they didn't just ask her to move. They cuffed her right there on the sidewalk while her phone was still recording. Her mother pulled up just in time to see her daughter being put in the back of a cruiser. The gym buddy was nowhere to be found. He vanished as soon as things got real. In the end, she had to plead guilty to a reduced felony to avoid 5 years in prison. Part of the deal was a permanent no-contact order and her mother having to take out a second mortgage on her house to pay me back the $6,500 plus my legal fees. She's now a convicted felon, jobless, and living in her mom's guest room. She thought, "We aren't married," meant she had the freedom to betray me without consequences. She forgot that it also meant I had zero obligation to protect her when she destroyed herself. If you enjoyed watching a best life turn into a felony record this quickly, hit that subscribe button. Stick around if you want to hear about the time her mother tried to sue me for emotional distress because I wouldn't pay for her daughter's bail.